I glanced down and saw a last name I didn't recognize. When our daughter was born, I thought the strangest part would be the delivery room chaos or the sound she made during her first cry. But no, none of that compared to the moment the nurse handed me the birth certificate and I saw a last name I didn't recognize. I stared at it, blinking hard. Maybe it was the exhaustion. We'd been up for 32 hours. My wife, Emily, was asleep finally. The baby was swaddled in her arms, a perfect little burrito of pink skin and blinking curiosity. But the name on that paper? Juliet Marie Ross. Ross.my last name is Keaton. Emily's maiden name is Hadley. There is no Ross in either family. I looked up at the nurse. I think there's a mistake. She tilted her head. What do you mean? This last name, Ross? That's not ours. She frowned. Took the paper back. It's typed from the hospital record system. This usually pulls automatically from the mother's profile. I felt my stomach flip. So, wait, it's what she submitted? The nurse gave a tight smile. It could be a clerical error. I can check, but if this is what she listed during admittance, her voice faded as she walked off and I just stood there, glued to the spot, heart hammering against my ribs. I looked back at Emily, who hadn't stirred. Her hair was stuck to her forehead, lips parted in a gentle snore, completely unaware that my entire sense of reality had just tilted sideways. Ross. Why Ross? Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe a middle name from her side? Or a relative she wanted to honor, but it didn't feel like that. It felt loaded, intentional. And when the nurse came back 15 minutes later and said it was entered this way during pre-admittance 2 weeks ago, my stomach sank. Emily had filled this out before she went into labor. Consciously. Deliberately. I couldn't confront her in that moment. She just pushed a human out of her body. She was exhausted, fragile, glowing. And I was spiraling quietly behind the veneer of a proud new dad. The nurse offered to flag the certificate for revision in case we wanted to change it. I nodded. But I didn't ask to change it right then, because I needed to understand why. That night, while Emily slept in the hospital bed beside Juliet's bassinet, I went through her hospital bag. I don't even know what I was looking for, maybe some kind of explanation. A note. An email. Anything. Instead, I found something stranger. A letter. Handwritten. Folded. Tucked into a side pocket. The envelope just said, for Juliet when she's older. I hesitated, then opened it. Inside was 2 pages of neat cursive Emily's handwriting, but what shook me wasn't the content. It was the way she signed it. Love always, your mother, Emily Ross. I dropped the letter like it burned me. Ross again. Emily Ross. I stared at her as she slept, and for the first time since we met 6 years ago, I realized. I didn't know her as well as I thought. She'd always been private about her past. Claimed she was estranged from her family. No siblings, parents divorced. I never pushed. I thought it was just emotional baggage, but now I had a baby named Juliet Ross and a wife who may not be who she said she was. The next morning, while Emily was in the shower, I made a call to her old college roommate, Amanda. We'd met at our wedding. She liked to overshare after 2 glasses of wine. Amanda, I said, random question, do you remember what Emily's last name was in college? Before she got married. There was a pause. Yeah? Of course. It was Ross. Why? My blood went cold. She always said it was Hadley, I said slowly. Amanda laughed awkwardly. Hadley? No. Her Facebook name used to be M. Ross. Wait, are you serious? She told you Hadley? I ended the call. My hands were shaking. Emily had lied about her name, which meant this wasn't a mistake on the birth certificate. It was a breadcrumb, and now I was holding the first piece of a puzzle I didn't know existed. The nurse walked in then, holding our daughter. She smiled. Ready for her feeding? I nodded numbly. Took Juliet in my arms. She stared up at me with eyes too big for her tiny face, full of innocence and wonder, and all I could think was, what else don't I know? What else has Emily hidden, and why, after all these years, was Ross the name she chose to give our daughter? I tried to act normal for the rest of the hospital stay. I held Juliet, changed diapers, smiled for the photos Emily insisted on sending to her mom friends group chat. But inside I was unraveling. Every time I looked at my daughter's tiny wristband, Juliet Ross, I felt like I was looking at a stranger's child. And every time Emily said, isn't she perfect? I had to bite down on the word why like it was a splinter in my tongue. The questions wouldn't stop multiplying in my head. Why Ross? Why lie about her last name? And what else had she changed? By the time we got home, I was drowning in suspicion. The day after discharge, while Emily was upstairs napping with the baby, I pulled her lockbox out of the closet. The one she kept labeled old tax stuff. She never let me go through it, always saying it was just junk. I pried it open with a butter knife. Inside were 2 folders. One full of legitimate-looking documents, W-2s, college transcripts, passport copies. all under the name Emily Hadley. But the second folder? That one was older. It had a yellowing envelope addressed to Emily Ross, postmarked in 2011. No return address. Inside were 3 things. 1A hospital wristband, 2A faded Polaroid of a toddler, 3A birth certificate. Not Juliet's. This one was for a baby named Maya Elaine Ross, born in 2008. Mother, Emily Ross. Father, no name listed. I sat down hard. Emily had another child. I reread it twice to be sure. Maya Elaine Ross, born when Emily would have been around 19. Which tracked, she told me she took a gap year before college. I'd never questioned it. But now I couldn't breathe. 1,000 memories clicked into place. The way she always looked uncomfortable around adoption stories. The panic attack she had when I suggested we take a family trip near Asheville where Maya had been born, according to the certificate. Her insistence that we never, ever talk about having more than one child. She'd buried an entire part of her life, and then named our daughter with the same last name she used for the one she gave up. I wanted to confront her right then, but something held me back. Because as stunned as I was, a darker question had started scratching at the edges of my mind. Was Juliet really ours? Or was she a second chance? Later that night, while Emily was feeding the baby, I asked her, gently, did you ever think about using a different last name for Juliet? Like yours, maybe? She stiffened. What do you mean? I just noticed the form said Ross. She blinked, then gave a soft laugh. Oh, that must have autofilled from my old records. You mean from college? She hesitated. Yeah, from before we met. Her eyes didn't move. Her hands were too still. Did you ever go by Emily Ross legally? Yeah. Briefly. My mom's maiden name. I used it for privacy after a stalker situation. I never told you because it felt irrelevant. A stalker. That was a new one. I nodded slowly, pretending to buy it. Makes sense. But I knew she was lying, and I was just starting to learn how good she was at it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I looked up everything I could about Maya Ross. Found nothing. No social media. No missing persons reports. No adoption records. It was like she didn't exist. Unless she still existed. Somewhere nearby. Maybe not as Maya. Maybe as Juliet. I remembered the birth. Emily insisted on a private midwife, even though we had insurance. She declined genetic screening, even though I wanted it. And when Juliet was born, there had been that weird pause. When the nurse looked at the wristband, then at Emily. She'd muttered something about same identifier, then waved it off. But what if? I opened my browser, searched the birth certificate number from Maya's form. Then I searched Juliet's. And my stomach dropped. They were identical. Same certificate number. Same hospital record ID. Different first names. Same birth date. Same mother. No father listed. I felt the world tilt beneath me. Juliet wasn't born last week. She was born in 2008. This baby, our baby, wasn't a newborn at all. She was Maya. And Emily had just reintroduced her to the world with a new name, a new birth certificate, and a husband who didn't know the difference. The room spun. I sat in the dark nursery, rocking chair creaking beneath me, that tiny bundle in my arms. Juliet, no, Maya slept with her mouth slightly open, a soft puff of breath against my chest. I could feel her heartbeat through her onesie. But suddenly, I didn't know who I was holding. I had to ask myself a horrifying question. Had I just signed a birth certificate for a child who wasn't born last week? And worse, had Emily somehow taken her back? I remembered the old Polaroid from the lockbox. The child in it couldn't have been more than 2. The resemblance was vague but present, the same sharp chin, the same little dimple on the left cheek that Juliet had. Or maybe that's what I wanted to see. At 3 a.m., I opened a private browser tab and searched every adoption law I could find. I needed to understand how this was possible. If a baby was born in 2008 and adopted, could a mother somehow reclaim her? No, not without an extensive legal process. Not without court involvement. And definitely not by pretending the baby had just been born last week. Unless this wasn't a legal adoption. Unless Maya was never actually given up. Just hidden. Or worse, stolen. That thought nearly made me drop her. No way. Emily wasn't a criminal. She was secretive, maybe even manipulative, but not dangerous. Right? The next day, I called in sick. Told Emily I had a migraine. She kissed my forehead and whispered, "Take care of yourself, babe. I've got her." I watched her bounce Juliet on her hip like nothing was wrong. Like we hadn't spent a week living inside a lie. Once she left the room, I went back to the lockbox, dug deeper, and found something I had missed the first time. A second envelope. This one wasn't addressed to Juliet or Maya. It was addressed to a woman named Jenna Caldwell. Inside was a brief, typed letter. No signature. No return address. Just one chilling paragraph. Emily, you said you just needed time, that you weren't ready. I respected that. But 3 months passed and now you won't respond. I need to know what's happening. Please don't do anything rash. I still want to be Maya's mother. We both signed the guardianship papers. If this is about the name, we can talk. Just please come back. I sat there stunned. Guardianship. So Maya had been entrusted to someone. Someone named Jenna Caldwell. And now she was gone. Reappeared. Repackaged. As Juliet. My head throbbed. My fingers trembled. This wasn't just a family secret. This was custody fraud. I couldn't let this go. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I called the number on the envelope's return label. The postmark was from Springfield, Illinois. I cross-referenced the name and found a Jenna Caldwell listed as a family therapist in that area. It rang twice. Caldwell Family Therapy, this is Jenna. I froze. Then said, slowly, hi. This is going to sound insane. But did you ever know someone named Emily Ross? Around 2008? The line went silent. Then, who is this? My name is Matt Keaton. I think I might be raising your daughter. The pause that followed felt like time itself cracked. Then Jenna whispered she took her. I told her everything I could in 3 minutes. The birth certificate, the name switch, the matching ID numbers. Jenna didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just asked one thing, what does she look like now? I described Juliet Maya as best I could. That's her, she said. Oh my God, that's my Maya. I didn't know what to say. So she said it for me. Emily ran off with her. Disappeared. No records. The guardianship wasn't legal adoptive, just temporary. Her lawyer made it all very vague. I kept reaching out for years. At one point, I thought maybe I imagined it all. She paused. She told me she was sick, that she needed time. I believed her. Why did she name her Maya? She liked the name. Said it meant illusion. Thought it was poetic. I nearly choked. An illusion. That was exactly what this was. Matt, Jenna said, voice tight, you need to get away from her. Emily doesn't care who she hurts. I loved that little girl. And she vanished. I hung up. My hands were sweating. When Emily came home that afternoon, I couldn't look at her. I watched her from across the living room. The way she bounced Juliet. The way she hummed that lullaby I once thought was hers. Now I realized she'd sung that to Maya once too. I smiled at her. My 4th lie in a week. Dinner's almost ready, I said. Because I had one more thing to do. I needed a DNA test. The next day, I picked up a DNA kit from the pharmacy under the excuse of needing vitamins. Emily was preoccupied, busy organizing baby clothes into sentimental and Instagram-worthy piles. She didn't even glance at the receipt. That night, while she was asleep, I swabbed Juliet's cheek. Her breathing stayed slow and even, peaceful. My hands were shaking the entire time. I sealed the envelope and drove to a 24-hour drop box across town, needing to be far away from home when I let go of it. The results would take 5 days. 5 days of pretending nothing was wrong. 5 days of watching my wife cradle a child she may have stolen from someone who once trusted her. And yet, a part of me still hoped I was wrong. That there was some benign explanation. That maybe Emily had panicked, made mistakes, changed names out of fear, not malice. But deep down, I already knew the truth. Because on day 3, I found something I wasn't supposed to see. Emily's laptop was open. Normally she was hyper-protective about her passwords, but Juliet had been fussy all morning and she'd left it unlocked. I wasn't snooping. I told myself that. But I opened her email anyway. There was a draft. Unsaved. Unsent. Subject line, for when he finds out. The message read, Matt, I always knew this day would come. I don't expect you to forgive me. But I want you to understand, I did what I had to do. They were going to take her. You don't know what Jenna was like. She made everything seem perfect, but behind closed doors, it was different. Maya cried every night. She wanted me. I took her back because I had to. Because no one else was going to fight for her. If you read this, then I guess I've lost everything again. No attachments. No context. Just guilt disguised as justification. She hadn't sent it, but she'd written it. She knew the truth was coming, and she was preparing for the fallout. That night, I confronted her, but not about the letter, about her past. Did you ever live in Illinois? I asked casually over dinner. She blinked. No. Why? Just something popped up on Facebook. A college reunion in Springfield. She smiled too fast. Weird. Must be someone with the same name. That was lie number 6. I played it cool. Pretended to believe her. Because tomorrow the results would arrive. And I needed to be ready. I barely slept. When the email hit my inbox the next morning, I was in the garage pretending to organize tools. I opened it. The match was clear, 0% probability of biological relationship between Matthew Keaton and Juliet Ross. I dropped my phone. It bounced off the workbench and landed on the floor like it wanted to escape too. She wasn't mine. Not biologically. Not legally. Nothing. I walked back into the house like a ghost. Emily was in the nursery singing, and for the first time I really listened to the lyrics. She's mine, all mine, forevermore. I stood in the doorway and said, I got the DNA results. She froze. The color drained from her face. Then, cool as ever, she turned and said, I can explain. Don't, I said, voice like ice. Just tell me who she really is. She swallowed. You already know. Tell me anyway. She sat down slowly, holding Juliet close. Her name was Maya. She was mine. I never wanted to give her up. Jenna said it was temporary, but when the court got involved, I panicked. I couldn't breathe without her. So you took her, I whispered. She's mine, she snapped. She's always been mine. You kidnapped her. No, Emily said, eyes wild now. I saved her. I backed out of the room, heart pounding, because now it wasn't just about lies or secrets. It was about safety. I had married someone capable of erasing a child's identity and believing she was the hero. I didn't say another word. I called Jenna. I have her, I said. She's safe. But Emily knows I know. Jenna didn't scream or sob. She just whispered, thank you. I asked what to do next. She told me to meet her, that she'd bring the right paperwork, that she'd never stopped fighting. And I believed her. That night, I packed a bag, put Juliet in her carrier, left a note on the kitchen table that simply said, you said she was yours, Dot. But she's not, Dot. Not anymore. I drove through the night, headlights cutting through the dark like truth through a lie. Juliet, Maya, was asleep in the back seat, her tiny fingers twitching in a dream I could never enter. I kept checking the mirror. Not for her. For Emily. I half expected her to chase me. Call. Text. Show up at the motel with that look she used to wear when she wanted to end a fight before it started. Sweet, patient, manipulative. But the phone stayed quiet. Jenna met us at a rest stop outside Springfield. She didn't cry when she saw the carrier. She knelt down like it was a ritual, hands trembling as she brushed a curl off Juliet's forehead. That's her, she whispered. God, she's bigger. But it's her. We sat in Jenna's car while she showed me everything. Legal guardianship documents, emails from Emily that slowly tapered off into nothing, court filings she never got to serve. She vanished in 2010, Jenna said. No contact. The police said it was civil, that since it wasn't a formal adoption, they couldn't do much. But I never stopped looking. I handed her the DNA results. She's not mine. Jenna's eyes filled. She didn't deserve this. Neither of you did. We stayed there for hours, talking, planning. She had a lawyer ready, a contact in child services, everything Emily had avoided for over a decade. And then, I drove home, empty. The house was dark when I walked in, but Emily was waiting. She sat on the edge of our bed, back straight, hands folded in her lap. You gave her to Jenna. It wasn't a question. She's not your child, I said. Not anymore. Not since you walked out of that courtroom with someone else's daughter. Emily stood. Her face was calm. Too calm. Like something inside her had snapped into place. You think you're the hero? She asked. I think I'm undoing a lie. She stepped forward. I carried her. I loved her. I nursed her through colic, read her bedtime stories before she could understand a word. Jenna never had to hold her while she screamed for hours. Jenna never stayed up wondering if she'd wake up coughing again. I did that. I didn't flinch. And then you ran. Because I knew they'd take her, she shouted. They didn't care. They didn't understand what we had. You took a baby and changed her name. I protected her. No, I said, voice low. You erased her. Emily laughed, dry, bitter. So what now? You think Jenna's just going to pretend the last decade didn't happen? That she can pick up where we left off? No, I said. But at least now she gets to know her daughter. Honestly, legally. Emily sat down again, shaking. You don't get it. That baby was the only thing I ever did right. And now she's gone. I stared at her for a long time. You didn't lose her tonight, I said. You lost her the day you decided to run. She didn't speak, didn't follow me when I walked out, didn't ask for forgiveness. The next morning, she was gone. No note, no keys, just the faint scent of her shampoo on a pillow that no longer belonged to anyone I recognized. Jenna called later that afternoon. Juliet Maya was adjusting well. Quiet, observant, still loved bedtime songs. She's safe, Jenna said. Thank you. But I didn't feel safe. I felt like a man who had loved a ghost. And now I was left alone in a house full of baby things I couldn't bring myself to pack away. Until I found one last envelope, tucked beneath the rocking chair cushion. It was from Emily. Just one line, scrawled in the handwriting I used to love. You were the only one who ever saw her smile and didn't flinch. It wasn't a confession. It wasn't regret. It was a goodbye. And suddenly, I realized I hadn't just lost a daughter. I'd never had her to begin with. The house was too quiet. No crying. No cooing. No lullabies echoing off the hallway walls. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the whisper of wind through the cracked kitchen window. It felt like grief had moved in and was making itself comfortable. I wandered from room to room like a man walking through a memory. Everywhere I looked, there were traces of a life I didn't get to keep. The half-folded onesie on the couch. The empty bottle in the sink. The stroller parked by the door like it still expected to be pushed somewhere. I wanted to put everything away. I really did. But every time I tried, I'd find myself stuck. Stuck staring at the way Emily had arranged the nursery books by color. Stuck hearing that tiny hiccup laugh Juliet used to make it 2 a.m. Stuck between rage and heartbreak because somewhere beneath it all, I still missed her. Even if she wasn't mine. Jenna sent updates. Gently. Thoughtfully. A video of Maya playing with building blocks. A photo of her holding a stuffed elephant I recognized from our guest bedroom. She smiled in the picture. That was the part that hurt the most. She looked happy. Without me. A week after Emily disappeared, I finally filed for annulment. Not divorce. Annulment. Because I realized our entire marriage was built on fraud. She changed her name, her past, her motherhood status. She didn't marry me, she married the role I could play in hiding what she'd done. The process took time. Legal hell. Statements. DNA evidence. Even Jenna had to give a deposition. But it went through. Emily never showed up in court. According to the PI I hired, she used her old alias and bought a one-way bus ticket to New Mexico. From there, no trail. I stopped looking after that. Sometimes, the answers you don't chase give you more peace than the ones you find. Life moved forward in small, reluctant inches. I went back to work, sold the house, moved into a small apartment across town with no nursery, no baby blue paint, no rocking chair that creaked with absence. And then one day, 6 months later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Just my name. Handwritten. Slanted. Familiar. Inside was a photo. It was of me. Holding Maya. In the hospital that first day. My eyes tired. My hair a mess. But I was smiling. She had written 3 words on the back. You were enough. That was it. No apology. No explanation. Just a parting gift from a woman who couldn't face herself. I stared at that photo for a long time. And for once, I didn't feel fury. Or confusion. Just a strange, aching peace. Because for all the lies, for all the damage, there was one undeniable truth. I had loved that child. And for a short time, maybe the only honest time, I had been her dad. Even if the papers said otherwise. A year later, Jenna sent one more update. Maya had started kindergarten. She wrote her name with a backwards Y and told her classmates her favorite color was unicorn. She had a new middle name now. Jenna let her choose it. She picked Hope. And when I read that, something finally settled in my chest. Not closure. Not quite. But maybe something better. A beginning.